What's going on, guys? My name is Doug. Welcome back to another video. Welcome to the channel. I'm very glad that you guys decided to stop by today. Very nice to see you. Hope you're staying safe. I know it took me a while to get to, but we're going to be listening to Partymobile by Partynextdoor today. The reason that I just haven't listened to it, for like 2 weeks maybe since it dropped, basically, I was anticipating this project. I was excited for it, and then as the singles started dropping, I just got less and less excited about it, and it really became one of the projects that I wasn't really anticipating anymore, just because I feel like the singles were kind of mid. I guess the hook for the news is pretty catchy, and I thought that Split Decision was a little more interesting than both of the previous singles. Loyal featuring Drake is just... It's twash is what it is. I just kind of lost a little bit of the enthusiasm for the project, but we're gonna get to it because I figure that it would be unfair to just not even give it a listen, not even give it the benefit of the doubt and try to get through it. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And like I said, I have heard the singles, so the news, Split Decision, and Loyal, we are going to be skipping over today. I do believe I made a video for Split Decision. I don't think I made a video for the news and Loyal. So if you want to go check that out, that'd be really cool too. And yes, just support the channel however you see fit. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. You know all that, so I'm just going to leave that up to you and do my thing and let you do your thing. And with that said, we're going to get into Partymobile by Partynextdoor. The first track is Nothing Less.
Whatever is left of me, stretching like a knife. Anything less, you won't accept it. So you never take a chance to forget. Every time I got you upset.
Yeah, so I think that the bad thing about this track is that it's not an actual song, it's just an intro. Or at least it's a song, but it feels like it's only an intro, you know what I mean? There's like a minute-long introduction to this track with just barely anything going on. And then when Party finally does start singing, the instrumentals are so understated and so lackluster, and at times even straight up boring, just because they just cut out completely while he's singing, that it doesn't ever feel like a song at any point that you come back to and actually listen to. It kind of just feels like an opener for the project, and in that sense it's like a throwaway track. You could necessarily skip it and start the album from track 2 because it doesn't feel like a song, just an opener. So I feel like that would be my major complaint with this one. I would have liked it to feel more like a song, shorter introduction to it, a little bit more going on in the production, just to give it, his vocals an actual bass to sit on top of, because having the instrumentals almost completely cut out for the majority of this track is just not what I'm looking for, especially after not hearing from you on an album in almost 4 years, is it now? So, I just would have liked a little bit more effort, I think, on that track. It just kind of feels a little bit mid.
Out in the streets, they call it murder. I wanna see them turn up.
Wow, that's great.
You said come and get it, so I came and can't get this baby till I hit TSA.
Hey,
I tell you I'm on my way.
this rides. Love the background vocals.
They call it murder.
I'm adding that to my playlist. I love that track. That's a great song. That might be the first track that I've heard so far off this project, including those singles. Maybe besides Split Decision. I think Split Decision was good, but this one's like the first track that I'm really vibing to. I think that the effort put forth here, the little bit more energy in his actual performance, the better production, quite frankly, the hi-hats and the bounce to the beat, the actual bass line, this beat really rides. I think that everything here is just working together really well. I think that the chorus is really strong. I think that he's just a little bit more emphatic in his approach to this track. So I think that that's more along the lanes of what we're looking for. Even the portions where the beat kind of cuts out, he makes it a point to really fill up that space with background vocals, and there's like a whole call and response thing with his main vocals and the background vocals, and it's just never feels empty. It never feels boring at any point. So that's a really, really strong track in my opinion. The first really strong track off the project. The next track is The News, and then after that is Split Decision, and then after that is Loyal, which I've heard all three of those, so we're gonna be skipping all three of those tracks, and we're going on straight to track 6, which is Touch Me.
Touch me and remind me of what I know. The days that you call me, the days that you want me, never wasted time. Oh, what I know.
You know, we've got to keep in mind, okay? This is the 6th track on the project, and until now, first track didn't feel like a track, felt like an intro, kind of like a throwaway. Second track was great. Third track was mid. Fourth track was good. Fifth track was mid. And now we've got another track that is just mid as well, you know. So this is becoming overwhelmingly mediocre at this point. You know, imagine you're listening to this entire project track by track, and you're on the 6th track, and up to this point, there's really just been one track that Partynextdoor has actually displayed energy. He's actually displayed any sort of excitement, you know, to even be recording. I mean, none of these tracks sound like he's inspired. You know, they kind of sound like he's just forced to go into a studio and make a track. The production here is cool. It's laid back, but he doesn't have to sound like he's half asleep over it. You know what I mean? I'm not just looking for these lullabies. I'm looking for something that I can ride to. I'm looking for something that I can vibe to, but that's not necessarily going to put me to sleep. And here, it just really sounds uninspired at this point. So it is a little disappointing, you know. And then the fact that it goes on for almost 4 minutes, you know, the track kind of runs on a bit too long, especially since he sounds like he's bored himself, you know. And if he sounds bored, how are we supposed to feel when we listen to it? You know what I mean? So that's a little tough, you know. I was expecting a little bit more from this album at this point, but we'll keep going. Maybe it picks up. So track 7 is Trauma. So this one sounds like it might be a little more upbeat.
Say it out loud and I said proud. Say it out loud and I said proud. Traumatized, I can't sleep at night. Trauma, I'm so.
I like the way that they manipulated that little background vocal to be like gated, you know, not gated, side chained. It kind of goes like oh, 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 in terms of its volume. I think that's just a nice little detail. The fact that they did that with a vocal instead of like a synth or something. It's really cool.
I'm staying without
Yo, you see what I'm talking about? You know, his performance, he's not belting, he's not hitting any super high notes, he's not, you know, going into his head voice or his falsetto or anything like that. A pretty tame performance, but it's still more energetic than that last track was. You know what I mean? He still sounds like he's happy to be singing on this beat, you know, and the beat itself is a little more energetic, it's a little more upbeat as well. I pair that with the background vocals that he adds and the harmonies, you know, all of that just makes for a more pleasant experience than that Touch Me song, you know what I mean? And it's catchy, and it's got a fun rhythm, and people are gonna dance to it, and it's got, you know, a fun experience to it. Man, it's not rush hour. Why are there so many cars outside? So yeah, this is one of the better songs. You know, I thoroughly enjoyed that one. And this is more along the lines of what I'm looking for. It's just a little bit of energy, you know? Don't always sound like you're half asleep.
Just a here for me. Showing you instead of telling you and loving you.
I'm waiting for the drop, man. Come on.
Just a here for me.
Wow.
Even though it's not a victory till the day I made it.
At this point, I'm literally counting the bars in my head, waiting for a drop, and it just never comes. You know, at this point, I'm not even focusing anymore on the lyrics because there's so much tension built up on this track and no release from an actual drop that it is getting me to become frustrated, you know? And if this goes on for 4 minutes and 47 seconds without a drop, I might have to export this track and add drums to it just so I can bear to listen to it again, because I'm going to be really upset if there's just no drums to this song.
Every day, 'cause it means so much to me.
That's the most frustrating track on this project so far. Absolutely the most frustrating song I have heard so far on this song. on this project. Excuse me, I'm flustered. You don't need drums to make a great track that you can vibe to. But with this song in particular, that production had such a great bounce to it, and it had the flute and it had the guitars and the little bouncy hi-hats, that it really felt like it needed some drums. This production in particular feels like it's lacking something. It feels like something is missing, and that's not always the case. You can have a banger that's basically just a guitar and a singer over it, but for this one, it feels like drums are missing, and that just builds up so much tension throughout the track that is just never released. And we lose focus on what Partynextdoor is even saying, because we're just anticipating that release, and it never comes. So that's really frustrating. That's really frustrating. It feels silly to even be this upset about it, but I can't fake this. I'm really frustrated. Hey guys, it's me from a few hours later, and I just wanted to say that I made a version with drums, and I'm gonna play a little snippet here because I don't want this video to get copyrighted, but the full version is going to be uploaded along with this reaction, so you can go and check that out afterwards if you're interested.
So, I'm so in love. I miss you. I miss your touch.
Next track is Eye on It.
One can be my only.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I would consider this Afrobeats or reggaeton or dance hall or, this island vibe. It just isn't for me. Sometimes it works well and I can vibe with it, and other times, just for some reason, it's just not really appealing to me, production-wise. A lot of it comes down to sound choice, whether or not there's a really cool bass line, the melody choices, and things like that. So in this particular case, this vibe is just not really doing it for me. I don't really have any problems with Partynextdoor's performance on this one. He doesn't sound like he's bored necessarily. He's got some really cool background vocals, some really nice falsetto vocal riffs. So that was pretty strong, but for the most part, it's just not really my vibe. So this one is like, I guess it's a good song, but it's just not for me. You know what I mean? The next track is Believe It, featuring Rihanna. He brought her out of retirement, basically, to to show up on a track.
That's when we believe it. That's when we believe it. That's when we believe it. Still punish me, no idea how time will go. If so, if you leave me, I'm gonna go.
I love the little vocal riffs in the background.
You love me, but you never ever trust me. Never ever trust me.
I like the Rihanna hook. I think that this is one of the better tracks on the project. It's catchy, it's got a nice vibe to it, the drums are cool. Compelling performances from Partynextdoor and Rihanna, so I added it to my playlist. I think that it's one of the tracks that I'll come back to a lot off the project. So I thoroughly enjoyed that one.
For the last 3 months, I've been thinking about all the things that you do, and you. Better off the worst, I'm always to me first with you.
As soon as I first heard the production, I thought to myself, he's going to have a very compelling performance on this one to really get me to enjoy this track, because I'm just not vibing with the production all that much. I feel like as soon as I heard the beat actually start, I heard way more of The Weeknd on it than Partynextdoor. I think Abel probably would have brought a little bit more energy to it, something a little bit more interesting to listen to. And I don't also think that he would have left the production to feel so empty. Maybe some extra keys or a few synths here and there to really spice things up a bit, because for the most part, this track is kind of a snoozer. It's kind of a lullaby, I guess. And I'm not saying that there isn't a place for it. I'm saying that for me personally, I don't feel like if I wanted to listen to a really laid back song, I don't think I'd listen to this one. I think this one is a little boring. It's that fine line between laid back and relaxing and actually being a boring track, and I think this one just leans a little bit too far to one side. So never again will I listen to that song. Partynextdoor fans are gonna be all up in my mentions pretty soon. Just don't think it's a very compelling song. I think that the production's nice, for sure, but nothing about it really screams replayability. Nothing about it feels like it's going to be stuck in my head. or anything like that. It's kind of just not a very memorable track. It kind of feels like a track that you can experience once and then just it doesn't really beg to be listened to again.
Tonight, spending night. It's always another day. I just don't think you're it. You're not right. What I wanna do to you, I wanna go to bed.
I like the bounce to that track. I like the vibe to it. It rides. It's a nice little song. I think that it's a cool interlude. It's not called an interlude here, but it kind of feels like one. It's one of the shorter tracks on the project, and so it just feels like a nice little breather. A track where we can kind of catch our breath and kind of just lay back and vibe to it for a little bit before we get to these last two songs. I think it's one of the better tracks of the project. I like the bounce to it. Like I said, I think it's got a nice little vibe to it. So I like it. But the thing is that a lot of these songs, I think, would be better off being shorter. Not this one particularly, but this is the one that made me think of this. For example, if that last track were shorter, it would feel like a nice little interlude. And if the track before it were shorter, it might also feel like a nice little interlude. And that's the thing, is that a lot of times some of these tracks would sound great if they were on someone else's project as just an interlude between two tracks, like a really short little vibe, But Partynextdoor put together an album full of what would have been nice interludes, and when you listen to one after the other, it kind of gets boring, I guess. So that's kind of what this kind of feels like. If I had to put it into words, I would just say that this sounds like an album full of interludes with maybe 3 or 4 major exceptions. Next track is Savage Anthem.
Hold your breath, my love. Number 2 now. I'm a man up, ain't no man down. You see, I don't get no fucks now. Don't hold your breath. Clean up cause you coming soon. I broke off in the living room. There's a smell in the living room.
Yeah, I just don't see how that's much of an anthem. The track is quite frankly really boring and it goes on for over 6 minutes. So, it is what it is. Now, the lyrics are pretty interesting to listen to. They're very toxic. I know Sean C loves his toxicity. So that is, I guess, interesting enough to listen to. But for the most part, there's just nothing that really keeps us invested in this song for 6 minutes. There's really not much there. A minimal chord progression, some snaps. It's just not enough. Partynextdoor just isn't interesting enough to keep our attention here on what he's saying and on what he's singing about here. So, it's a quite frankly a boring outro to the project. The last track is actually the Loyal remix featuring Bad Bunny, but I already really dislike the song and I don't think Bad Bunny could make it any better, so I'm just not going to listen to that. Yeah, this album is quite frankly disappointing because we waited 4 years for it and I was excited for it, like I said at the beginning of the video. And mid-single after mid-single, that anticipation just kind of disappeared. And so even after putting this off for like 2 weeks and coming to it with lowered expectations, it still managed to be disappointing. There were maybe 3 or 4 really great takeaways from this project, and there are a total of 15 songs on it, so it's just not a great album. I wouldn't call it a bad project. None of these songs necessarily are bad, but a lot of them are just poorly executed, lacking energy, lacking compelling production, direction, and just quite frankly, a lot of it just sounds like lackluster and there was a lack of effort and it's kind of mediocre. So that's just how I feel about it. I know that there are a lot of Partynextdoor fans that have found a concept to the entire thing, and really none of that shines through on a first listen. And off a first listen, it just doesn't really beg to be listened to again enough to find that concept. So, if you're upset about how I feel about this, that's fine, I guess. If this is for you, then enjoy it and stream it and listen to it 1,500 times if you want to. But, for my personal opinion, man, a lot of this stuff just isn't for me, and that's upsetting to say about a Partynextdoor album. but I think he could have done better, you know. I know he could have done better. Still, if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the support, you know, just by watching the video, you show so much love to the channel. If you enjoyed the video, or at least you enjoyed the opinions that I had to give on the project, consider subscribing, following the social media, watching other videos. Two of the most major ways that you can support the channel is by becoming a patron or by becoming a member on the channel. And if you'd like to support that way, I'd really appreciate it, but that's up to you. You know, you can support that way if you see fit. And I'm gonna keep making videos though, so you are gonna see me very soon, I promise. Until then, stay safe, stay at home, wash your hands. Wishing you guys all the best. Peace out. Ignore the truck in the background. Peace out.